Okay, this video is going to cover the first three tables in Lesson 5 of Grammar with Context. If you want to follow along in your book and take notes, we're going to start off on 153. Okay, so starting off, the first section is about noun plurals, and it's divided up into two parts: so the regular noun plurals and the irregular noun plurals. So let me go through first the regular noun plurals. One of the questions that I asked you to answer was what are the four different regular noun plurals? So what they are listed here on this table, and I think it's a little bit more clear than the big table on 153 because there's a ton of information there and it can get very confusing if you're not sure how to follow it. But the four things that you need to remember are these plural additions. So one way to make a plural is just adding an s. Another way is to add es. Another way is to cross out the y and add ies. And then the last way is to cross out the f and add ves. Okay? So there's rules for when we use each of these different forms, and it's based on the ending of the noun. So if we look here at the first one where we add an s, there's four different occasions where we can do that. So the first one is with most vowels, with most words that end in a vowel. And so remember again, a vowel is I, A, E, I, O, U. We're just going to add the S. So here we have B, which ends in E, and we just add an S, and this is B's. The same is true for most consonants. So the simplest definition of a consonant is that a consonant is not, pardon me, is not a vowel. So it's not A, E, I, or U. So cat ends with T, which is not A, E, I, or U, and so we just add the S to it. So it becomes cats. When we have a vowel plus Y, like this one, like boy, O is the vowel and then we have Y, we just add the S there. Okay, so it's boys. Or when we have a word that ends in a vowel plus an O, like this one, video, we have the vowel E plus O, we just add the S there. Okay, so our first rule here is with using S. The second one is with ES. Okay, and there's only certain specific times that we use it. When the word ends in a CH, an SH, an X, or an S, we're going to do that. Now the reason that we do that is that if you think about these sounds, this one is ch, and this is sh, and this is x, and this one s. Okay? All of these sounds are called syllabates, and what that means is that you sort of sound like a snake when you're saying them. So ch, sh, x, tss. It's got this hissing sound. So we add the es to them. So if we take a look at this this first one, church, and remember here we're looking at the sound at the end, not at the beginning. The beginning doesn't matter at all. So church becomes churches, dish becomes dishes, box becomes boxes, class becomes classes. Okay, so for all of those four sounds we need to add the es. The other time we'll add an es is when we have a consonant plus O. So we'll see a different example in just a second, but when we have a consonant plus O, we're going to add the ES. So here we have potatoes. So we look at the end, we have T plus O, right? This is a consonant plus O, so we add ES. Compare that with the word video that we looked at before. In this one we had a vowel plus O, and so we just add the S. Okay? But when we have a consonant plus O, we add ES. All right, then the last one, the third one here is when we have a consonant plus Y. So when we have a consonant plus Y, what we do is we erase the Y and we add IES. So, pardon me, lady becomes ladies. You see the Y is gone and we're adding IES in its place. The last one here is when we have a word that ends in F or FE. Okay, and there are some exceptions to this, but anyway, let's look at what happens here. When we have a word that ends in F or FE, we get rid of the F or we get rid of the FE and we add VES. So leaf becomes leaves. You can see the F is gone and we've added VES. Knife becomes knives. You can see that the FE is gone and we've added VES. Okay, there are a couple of exceptions and they're listed on page 153. So the word belief, we don't change this to make it believes, and chief, we don't change it to make it chieves, and there's other ones there, roof, cliff, chefs, and sheriffs. These are some exceptions to that rule. So do take a look at those, especially the word beliefs. That's a word that you're likely to write. So you should know that that one doesn't follow the rules. So let's look at some practice here for these ones. Okay, so here's the first one, banana. This one ends in a vowel, right? So this one's going to be bananas, just the S. Here we have beach. This one ends in the sh sound, like that snake-like sound. So this is going to be beaches. So we add the ES. Here we have month. Okay. Now this one is easy to get confused about because some of you may think that month is like sh or sh, but it's not. Okay. So we don't say month is, we say months. Okay, and it's a common mistake that some ESL students make. So here we have pin. This is ending in a consonant, so this is just pins. Here we have day. Now we look at the end, it ends in Y, so we look before the Y and we see that there's a vowel A. So we have vowel plus consonant, we just add the S. Story. Again, here we have one ending in Y, so we look before the Y and we have a consonant R. So what we're going to do is get rid of the Y and add IES. So it becomes stories. Radio. So we look, here we have one that ends in O. So we have to look before the O. And there's an I before the O. So when we have vowel plus O, we just add an S. But here, again, we have an O. But what comes before the O is an R. So we have a consonant plus an O. So we add ES for that one. Here we have wife. So here we have one that's ending in FE. So when we have an FE, what we do is we get rid of the pardon me, we get rid of the FE and we add VES. Here we have bus. So the sound at the end is a consonant, but it's a snake-like sound. So we're going to add the ES. So now let's take a look at the irregular plurals, and you can turn the page over to page 154. Now, this table has some of the irregular plurals. If you go to the back of your book to Appendix B, which is on AP4, there's a more complete list of all the different irregular plurals. We're only going to focus on these three. In the book there's listed a number more of them, but we're only going to focus on these three types, and this is what I want you to answer in your question. The question is asking you what are the three different types of irregular noun plurals, and what those are is one is a vowel change, one is no change, and one is where you have a different word form altogether. So if we take a look at these, some of these are very common. So we say man. The plural is men. You can see that the vowel was changed. Here it's an A and here it's an E. Same thing here, tooth to teeth. We have OO and here we have EE. Goose to geese. We have OO and then EE. Then there's some where there's no change. So one sheep, two sheep. One fish, two fish. One deer, two deer. Okay, these ones we don't pluralize. We're going to learn a little bit more about this word fish because my guess is that a lot of you guys have heard the word fishes. And we'll explain later in a later section when that's okay. But in general, these ones we don't change. And then there's these ones that have a completely different form. So we have child becomes children, mouse becomes mice, person becomes people. Now, persons with an S is a word, but it's more common when we're talking about the plural of person, meaning many persons, for us to use people rather than persons. It's not wrong to use persons, but the more common usage is people. So I would encourage you to use that. Okay, so moving along, let's look at a little practice here. So this one here is deer, and the plural of this, if you look on the tables, is deer. Tooth, teeth. Child, children. Jeans, jeans. This is one that doesn't change. Shorts, shorts. Woman, women. Fish, fish. Groceries, groceries. Foot, feet. Mouse, mice. Okay? So those are some of the irregular ones. I do want you to learn those different forms, the explanations, vowel change, no change, and different word form. but really, unfortunately, with irregulars, it's one of those things that's mostly a matter of memorization. There's no real trick to it. All right, so moving on to 5-2. So this is on page 156, and this is talking about generalizations. What a generalization is when you are saying something that is true of a group of people or a group of things. It's non-specific. It's not about one specific person. It's just a general statement. Now, there's two ways that we can do this in English. One way is by using a singular subject with an indefinite article, a or an. And the other one is to use no article and to use the plural form of the verb. So if we look at the two examples here, we have this first one, a football game lasts about 3 hours. Okay, we have a, and then football game is the noun. This one's singular. Okay, and here we have football games last about 3 hours. Both of these ones mean the same thing. That's why we have the equals here. Okay, they're generalizations. They're not talking about a specific football game. They're talking about in general. The same thing here. A sweet potato is nutritious. Sweet potatoes are nutritious. The meaning of them is the same. The meaning of them is the same. So let's take a look at this, right? So here we have the word children. This is a plural form. What's something general that you can say about children? Here's an example. Children ask a lot of questions. It's not about a specific child, but children in general. I can write this same sentence using a child. So I would say a child asks a lot of questions. I'm not talking about any specific child, I'm just speaking generally. So here we have teachers. What can you think of to say about teachers in general, not a specific one? So here, teachers have difficult jobs. Okay? Of course, this is my opinion. You may disagree, but that's what I believe. But I can say the same thing using the singular form, a teacher, so it becomes a teacher has a difficult job. So sentence 3 and 4 mean the same. 1 and 2 mean the same. These are just generalizations. All right, so then moving on to this next table on page 157, and there's a lot of information here and it can be very confusing, but let me break it down for you because this is important information. The first thing we want to talk about is that when we're using numbers like million, millions, here when we're giving someone's age, and here when we're talking about years. Okay, so we have three different cases here. So when we have an exact number, we're going to use the singular form of this number. So this can be confusing. When we say exact number, what we mean here is that there's actually a specific number, 300 million people. It's not, we know exactly how many. It's not general. But when it's inexact, when we don't have that number in front of it, we use the plural form. So here we say the U.S. has 300 million people, right? But the same idea is millions of people live in the U.S. But I don't know exactly how many, so I put the S. When I know exactly, no S. When I don't, I put an S. And then here, when we're talking about approximate age means I don't know exactly the age. So I say my grandfather is in his 70s. I don't know if he's 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, going on. I just know that he's in his 70s. The same thing when I'm talking about years and I'm not being specific. He was born in the 1940s. I don't know, was he born in 41, 42, 43, 44? Okay, I just know that he was born sometime in that time period. So in those cases, I'm going to use the plural forms. Okay. The next thing is that we use the plural form with this construction. When I say one of, now this is confusing for a lot of ESL students because they see one of and they think singular. So their expectation is that after one of, I should use something singular. But that's not correct. So here I say one of my neighbors brought a pie to Thanksgiving dinner. Okay? So one of the neighbors, right? This one has to be plural. So in this case, one of the men helped with the dishes. This one is plural, an irregular plural. So whenever you have this one of construction, we need the plural form. Here's another confusing one. We have every and all. And basically every and all have the same meaning, right? Every means all the people. All means every person, okay? But the grammatical way that they're used is different. So after every, we use a singular noun. So here we say every guest brought something. Okay? But after all, we use a plural. All the guests brought something. The meaning of these two sentences is basically the same. It is the same. But the grammar is different. So we have to keep this in mind. Because if we say every guests, that's wrong. And if we say all the guests without the S, that's wrong. So you have to keep that in mind. The next thing is that there's a bunch of words that have no singular form. They're always plural regardless. So we have words like pajamas, which are the clothes you wear to bed. We have the word clothes, pants, slacks, eyeglasses, scissors. These ones are always plural. So after dinner, the girl put on her pajamas and went to bed. Not pajama. Okay? It's always plural. And then we have words like news and politics that end in S and they look like they're plural, but they're singular. And so the important thing is that when we use them as the subject of a sentence, we use a singular verb. So here the news is depressing, not the news are depressing, because news is singular. Politics is interesting, not politics are interesting. So even though they look plural, they're actually singular in usage, grammar usage. So let's take a look at some sentences. Each one of these sentences has some mistakes. So here we say she has 2 childrens. What's wrong here? Well, in this case, it's an irregular plural. Children is irregular, so we don't want to put the S on it. She has 2 children. Every children need love. What's wrong here? It should be every child needs love, because after every, we want to have the singular form of the verb. Of the noun. One of my sister is a lawyer. What's wrong here? In this case, it should be one of my sisters is a lawyer, because after one of, we have to use the plural form of the noun. Million of people live in the US. What's wrong here? This one has to be millions of people live in the US, right? Because it's an inexact number. We don't have a specific number. I am wearing a pant and a t-shirt. What's wrong here? This one should be I'm wearing pants and a t-shirt, right? Pants is always plural, is always plural. The news are very interesting. What's wrong here? The problem is it should be the news is very interesting. Even though news looks like it's plural, it's actually singular. All the student works very hard. What's wrong here? It should be all the students work very hard, right? Because after all, we have to have a plural. His house cost $2 million. What's wrong here? It should be his house cost $2 million because I have a specific number. I went to high school in the 80 and 90. What's wrong here? It should be I went to high school in the 80s and 90s. So what we're talking about is we're being non-specific, so we need them to be plural. Please let me use the scissor. What's wrong here? It should be please let me use the scissors. Okay, because scissors is a word that is always plural. Okay, so go ahead and answer the questions on these, and we'll do some of the practice in the book in class. All right, take care. Bring any questions you have to class. Bye.